So a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us here today. I think more people will come in. And a warm welcome also to those of you who are following us online through the web streaming. Thanks, and sorry for not being able to have you here today, but I hope you can enjoy the session too. So we are here today to host a conversation on how we can, through Horizon Europe, upscale agroecology through open innovation. That's the theme that we have given ourselves for today when we propose to you. I am Alexia Ruby. I'm one of the 4 people hosting this session today, together with my colleagues. So we work for the Research and Innovation Service in the Agriculture and Rural Department of the European Commission. We co-managed the agriculture and rural part of the research program together with our colleagues in DG Research. And together with me, so I have Susanna Gaona here. Can you please stand up? Who is our agroecology expert. We have Yuri, who's going to help me with moderating and taking your questions from the floor. And at the back over there, we have a very tall person called Wim Hentjens. He will be your Slido moderator. Okay, so our objective today is to discuss our orientations for research and innovation activities supporting agroecology, especially through the development of place-based innovation initiatives such as, for example, living labs. So before we start, we would like to learn a bit more about you, know a bit who's in the room. And I would like to start by getting to know maybe how familiar you are with the subjects that we discussed today. So, for example, can you raise your hand if you feel you are familiar with the concept of agroecology? Oh, it's quite a good crowd. Okay. An easy one for some of you. Who is familiar with the concept of living lab? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, also quite a good crowd, so that's good. Now, I would like to know a bit your background, maybe, what brings you here. So, who among you is a scientist? Okay. Who among you is a farmer? Well, you have a tough job here. You're the only one. So, thanks for making up here today. Who works for NGOs? Okay. Anyone policymaker? Making policies? Yes. Okay. And anyone other of a category I have not described? What is your category? Academy, but not scientist. No. Okay. Working for scientists. Okay. Thanks very much. Are you the same sort of? You too? Academy too? Okay. Thanks. So we have quite a diverse community here. Maybe, only one farmer perspective, so it's good to see what it means and what we could do maybe in the future. I hope we have more listening to us online. So, here is how this is going to work. So we are going to first to introduce our plans for Horizon Europe, and Susanna is going to do that for us. Then we are going to invite 4 different perspectives on our subject. We have a panel of distinguished people here, and in 5 to maximum 6 minutes, they will tell us what their view is on what we should do next with Horizon Europe. And while they talk, I invite you to note down your comments or ideas you would like to share in the discussion. You can do that on paper, or you can do that also through Slido. So Slido I have given here, so we are on the 3rd day of this event, so I hope maybe you're familiar. There's an event app which is available. Slido is accessible through the app. So what you have to do on your event app is go to the policy conference session here, and then choose the room in which we are, which is Levi Montalcini. And there you'll be able to input your comments. So please do that. The added value of this way of putting in your ideas, sharing your ideas, that this we will keep afterwards, export and keep your comments and inputs, even if we don't have the time to share them all during the discussion. So, but I will also take comments from the floor. And after we have heard the 4 perspectives from our panel, we will invite you to share also your perspectives and your ideas, again from the floor or through Slido. Is that clear for everyone? Yes? Okay, so now let's get started. Susanna, can you tell us what our plans are so far under Horizon Europe on agroecology and these sorts of things? Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. So Alexia already introduced me, so I'm not going to spend time on that. I'm Susanna Gaona. I am a colleague of Alexia in the DG Agri Research and Innovation Unit. And of course, welcome to all of you for being here and for your interest in this particular session, where we are going to discuss how we can promote and upscale the transition towards agroecology through open innovation. Just a quick reminder why we are here. You know that the European Union has opened a consultation that is already available online, open until the 4th of October, basically to gather the views of the public on our proposals for how the next research and innovation program framework of the European Union is going to look like, so Horizon Europe. And these R&I days are meant to be a complement of this open consultation. So this session where we are here today is going to help us to discuss how the activities that we are planning under Horizon Europe that support agroecology, especially through the development of place-based innovations such as initiatives such as Living Labs, can look like, or if you think this is an approach that makes sense, basically to you, if you have experiences. That's why we have the speakers also here today to tell us their view. For us, there are two things that can complement each other very well and can go along very well together, but of course we want to hear your views. And we also want to know, and that's why we are also here, a perspective of a scientist from INRA, what can be the potential of digitalization for agroecology, for promoting agroecology, or helping understanding agroecology a bit better. So some of the salient points that we have in the strategic orientations for Horizon Europe are relevant for the topic that we are discussing today. I would say most of the orientations are relevant, but in particular, we know that human activities are creating mounting pressures on ecosystems and on natural resources, and particularly the impacts of climate change on natural resources are particularly worrying. We know that agriculture and forestry sectors have an important role to play because they manage 80% of the land in the European Union. We know also, and this is a very worrying information, of course, that the decline in biodiversity is increasing and is a particular concern. We also know that our diets are directly linked to the way, to environmental sustainability and the way we manage our resources. So we need to make food systems more responsive to the needs of the communities and perhaps to look at more local food environments. So as all of you know, the European Union has a clear ambition to lead the transition towards a sustainable, climate-neutral, circular and environmental-friendly economy. Actually, just a few weeks ago, we heard the priorities of our new President of the European Commission, among which we have the European Green Deal, which reaffirms this commitment of the European Union to become really an environmental friendly and circular and climate neutral economy. And in all this, research and innovation is crucial to better understand what are the drivers of the sustainability challenges and how we can devise solutions to address these challenges. So why we link agroecology and Living Labs to this? So we believe that agroecology, that we defined as the study of ecological processes applied to agricultural production systems, can provide answers to these big challenges that I just mentioned before, and to contribute to fulfill the objectives of the Cluster 6 or Horizon Europe that you can all have access to. I don't enter into that because we don't have so much time. But currently the problem that we have is a transition to more sustainable agricultural practices is hindered because we don't have maybe sufficient knowledge on the ecological processes that are behind the agricultural production at spatial and time scales, and this is very important. And we also have the problem that we lack evidence on the economic and environmental performance of these innovative approaches. And this is why we want to link it with the concept of Living Labs, because Living Labs, and we take the definition that is accepted by ENOL, the European Network of Living Labs. Living Labs can be defined as user-centered open innovation ecosystems based on systematic user co-creation approach, integrating research and innovation processes in real-life communities and settings. So really touching the many aspects that are also relevant for the agroecology uptake. So we believe that promoting place-based innovations, such as living labs, that can reinforce the multi-actor approach even further in agroecology, can be a key driver to speed up the uptake of results. So with all this, I think now we are ready to listen to our speakers and to listen also to your views and to your ideas. We are looking forward to that, and we hope you enjoy the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susanna. That was perfectly on time. So she set the standards very high for you also. So thanks. We'll start with the first perspective with Luis. So Luis Navarro Lopez, you come from Andalusia, where you run a network of living labs called Guadalinfo. And you also co-chair the action-oriented task force on rural and agri-living labs within ENO, the European Network of Living Labs. We've heard the definition just mentioned by Susanna. I'm sure for some it may have been a bit complicated. So can you illustrate a bit that so we see what it is a bit more, and what can the Living Lab approach bring to agricultural and rural innovation, but with a focus on agriculture, as this session is about agriculture also. How do you see this approach helping farmers developing themselves the solutions to be more sustainable? Thanks.
Thank you, Alessia. Thank you, all the team, not just for the event, just for your commitment in introducing new models in the agriculture or the rural field. Okay, to understand how can living labs, a living lab approach, help in scaling agroecology or whatever, first we have to understand what a living lab is. I really appreciate the definition of Susanna, but I have to say that, okay, to be honest, I have had many discussions with my colleagues about what a living lab is. Yes, I have to say that it is very difficult to find a definition of a living lab that encloses every living lab on Earth. But when it comes to defining a very few words and probably in a very informal way what a living lab is, I always highlight two concepts. One is connectors, and the other is trust. Both concepts are enclosed in the manifesto. You can search for that in the European Network of Living Labs website. And yes, the Living Lab is a perfect vehicle for driving open innovation models, acting as connector of the key local stakeholders, and by putting the citizen in the core of the innovation. And yes, it can only happen if people trust you. And believe me that most likely people trust us. So they are more likely to be ready to be involved in the innovation process. So next question should be, okay, what will be the result of applying open innovation models in the context of the rural areas? Okay, the result is building a new rurality, a new concept and a new definition of what a rural area should be. A new definition where we are no longer talking about bringing infrastructure or technological opportunities to the rural areas, but visualizing them as an opportunity itself. And at this point, to visualize, for better visualizing what I'm talking about this mind changing, I'm going to quote or to read the definition we can find in the Wikipedia about a rural area. In general, a rural area or countryside is a geographic area that is located outside towns and cities. Okay, according to this definition, a rural area is a part of territory which is not a city or a town. I mean, it is a negative perception of the rural area. And we aim, from a Living Lab approach, to build a positive perspective. So, rural areas are not just providers for the big cities. They are an attractive place to live with a huge room for innovation. And why change this definition if we are comfortable with the other? Why do we need this transformation? I would say, okay, urban, not rural. Urban areas need help. Our big cities are close to the collapse. Think of pollution, think of chaotic mobility. 1 minute. Then I'm going to sum up. So, okay, the coming future has to be based in a more distributed and balanced model between the rural and the urban and the cities and the village. And how are we conducting or trying to conduct this transformation? Okay, we are defining the pillars that have to support this new rurality concept, among others, agriculture, ecology, education and training, circular economy, whatever. And understanding that an action of one of them is going to affect the others. Only this way, understanding those pillars and understanding these connections and links enable us to prototype innovative solutions within the context of this new rurality we aim to build. And yes, we are on it, and as an completely open approach, we are more than pleased if anyone wants to join us in this definition. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Luis. Okay, so we understand that living labs are an approach embedded with trust, where the experimentation is done by the users of the solutions for them as well. So, Jannes Maas, you're a farmer, a dairy farmer in Belgium, and also the president of the European Council of Young Farmers, CEJA. The young farmers very much are at the forefront of leading maybe a different way of farming in the future. So I'd like to know, what is your perspective? What do European farmers need to move towards more ecological ways of farming, maybe, that better use what nature provides already? And what role do you see for these sorts of approaches, open and innovation, where farmers are in the driving seat of experimentation, of innovation, and maybe in greater connection with society?
Yeah. Thank you, first of all, for the kind invitation. Let me say one thing about the whole event. Research and innovation, I think it's a very good name. Often we talk about research and development. Innovation implies implementation as well, and that is crucial when you look at getting real results, making sure that when we talk about agroecology and farming, that farmers can also implement certain innovations on the farm. That's the only way we get results. So that's a very good starting point. When it comes to what farmers need, young farmers or young farmers by heart, I would say, it doesn't change that much. That's basically knowledge. Knowledge is the basic one, whether it is about the options, but also the consequences of some choices. Support to get them, and a third one, appreciation, making sure that there is societal and political appreciation for the steps that have been taken. It is a pure psychological, but we see it across human, across society in general, is that if you want to encourage people to take steps and to keep on taking steps, is make sure that you appreciate the first two steps that were already taken. If you don't, well, then farmers, just like any other human being, will end up saying, well, if it doesn't matter, we won't do it at all. How can living labs come into this? The great thing about European agriculture and agriculture globally, basically, is that we have tons of living labs. Every single farm has the potential of becoming a living lab, where things are tested and also outsourced towards colleagues and the rest of society. in that, I think it's crucial, and I'm happy that you already pointed that out in your explanation about living labs, is that it's crucial, the trust level. And as a farmer, there is no one that I trust as much as my neighboring farmer, or a farmer the other side of the world. Because I know if she or he will say something about a practice that they were doing on the farm, or a practice that they have done on the farm, or an innovation that they have implemented on the farm, that whatever the message is a clear message. Because I know that that person on the other side is also aware of the other challenges, which are not always technical challenges about the evolution that has been made, but are very often also trade-offs on social level, on economic level, on the way that the vision of the farm has changed, on the way that other people look at you as a farmer. And those challenges are going very often to the heart, but you know that another farmer faces that same challenge, faces those same questions. And so it's always a good thing to hear the story from another farmer, because you already assume that they will have been able to go through the same thinking process as you would have planned to do. So in contrary to an open farm which is led by researchers, which very often gives away what technically is possible on that farm. But as a farmer, you're also always a bit skeptical, because you assume, well, okay, very good, but in the weekend, you don't have to be on your farm to manage things. Your children don't have to run around on that farm able to destroy whatever you have been built. Your income doesn't depend on the success of your farming activity, because you're supported by research funds, which is a good thing. I mean, I'm not questioning research institutions and their practical implementations, but if you want to convey the message to farmers, make sure that the message is brought by colleague farmers. The positive thing there, as I mentioned, is of course the trust level between farmers. Maybe the biggest challenge in that, and it's something that I feel as well, so it's not a blame towards farmers, or at least it is a blame, but then also towards myself, is that if I would implement a certain new way of working on my farm with the goal of, for example, agroecology, takes quite a while before I would even consider saying something negative about the choice that I have made. Because by defining a challenge that I have faced in the process, I'm defining that I might have made the wrong choice, which, as a human being, is not an easy thing to tell, certainly towards colleagues that you want, of which you want the respect and the appreciation. So it will, yeah, it's always a big search towards finding the right language in terms of questioning a farmer on how they felt and how a process went, in order to get them to speak freely from the heart and also point out the challenges that they have faced, whether they are socially, economically, or technically on the issue itself. I'll conclude there.
Okay. That was very enlightening, and also echoes with a lot of things we have heard around living labs and the management of emotions and behavior and things like that. So very interesting. Thanks very much, and also for being so on time. Elina Das Bouwnink, you are here on behalf of the European Community of Consumer Cooperatives. So we're going to talk about engagement, maybe beyond the farming sector, which we have already implemented quite a lot under Horizon 2020 through the multi-actor approach. But yeah, what about consumers? How do you see them being involved in initiatives such as living labs, or things that look alike, maybe, that you know of? And how could this involvement support the farmers in positive and constructive ways in moving towards different ways of farming?
Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're welcome to stand
I will go there. I like it
fine.
better there. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Nice to see you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I represent Eurogroup, which is European Community for Consumer Cooperatives, but I'm part of a Finnish retail trader, the largest retail trader in Finland, called S Group, and I come from Finland. In addressing global challenges like climate change, both businesses and consumers are playing an increasingly important role. And we want to be part of this transformation. We are taking several measures to involve consumers and farmers in our efforts. I will tell you about 3 of these measures. First, carbon counter. It's for determining the carbon footprint of purchases. And second, carbon marketplace. And third, training farmers and funding for scientific research. First, the carbon counter. It's a service that collects information on every purchase a consumer makes. It allows customer owners to easily track their own purchasing behavior. For example, from the mobile device. It shows information on the carbon footprint of the consumer's food basket. This unique service combines consumers' own purchasing data with product-specific indicators developed by the scientific community. So we give the business data back to consumers for their benefit. And the users of the service learn which products have a large carbon footprint and which have lesser one. It helps make the climate-friendly decisions. And our consumers have contributed to the development of the service by telling us what they want to see in it. And now, at the moment, the carbon counter provides information on the product group level. But our goal is to reach the product level. But it's not easy. It needs not more research. So we are in a good start. And in the future, it will be important to have more dynamic product-specific data and life cycle estimates that consider changes also in land use. And these standards used for calculating climate impact should be agreed at the EU level. And we also need more information about soil changes, which also require further research and development. Then the second thing, the carbon marketplace. This is kind of the world's first voluntary carbon marketplace. Carbon removal marketplace has been established in Finland. It enables companies offset their carbon dioxide emissions. So companies buy measures from this marketplace to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Forest, nature's own carbon sinks, and their effectiveness in this role is well established. But in the future, the ability of land to bind and store carbon must be given a larger role in the system. So our aim is that agricultural land will be included to the carbon removal marketplace. It would mean that in the future, farmers could be able to earn income from carbon sequestration in addition to food production. To have real incentive for carbon farming, a mechanism must also be provided for operators outside the emissions trading sector. We think carbon trading should be practiced as widely as possible. Carbon farming can be a potent force in fighting climate change, so it's important to have real incentive to develop it. And our third measure is training farmers and funding for scientific research. So, however, access to the carbon marketplace requires scientific verification of the carbon sequestration of the farmed land. And so we are funding a pilot study to investigate carbon reserves in deeper soils and changes to them. We are also investing in training for farmers. The key training themes are consumer data and carbon farming. So in the end, political decisions play an important role. in the major changes that are taking place. To achieve climate-related goals, more cooperation is needed. It's crucial, first of all, to develop a mechanism for operators outside the emissions trading sector, and second, to increase funding to research the established EU-level standards for calculating the carbon footprint of products. And third, to have a working system for verifying soil carbon sequestration. So our vision is a world which activities are carbon neutral. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much for these, all these examples of how consumers, through their purchase, can drive maybe the practices upstream, and how you are, as cooperatives, are involved in developing this. We hear how much research it still needs, and we hear also about market opportunities. So this carbon farming, maybe we'll have time to talk about it. Carbon as a new product of farming. Yes, no, why? We've heard this also in Normandy in June. But before that, we have finally a fourth perspective from Christian Gary here. You're an agronomist and a scientist at the National Research Agronomy Institute in France, INRA, and you work on the link between digital technologies and agroecology. So can you please, these two things, as I perceive, are sometimes opposed, and we see that they could, on the contrary, be synergetic. So can you tell us a bit about this, how technology can help also agroecology?
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, you're right to stress this complex connection between digital technologies and agroecology. Well, agroecology is knowledge intensive for two main reasons. One is that in the transition to agroecological systems, usually farmers manage more diversity, a higher number of crops. They connect crops with cattle, and also they have longer rotations. So they have a system that is more complex with more components to manage. And second, the agroecological management should be more adapted to local conditions. If you rely on ecological regulations, you should really adapt to the local conditions, to what the local conditions permit you to do, instead of applying the same procedure everywhere. So yes, indeed, an agroecological management needs sensors to get information, need data management systems, to feed decisions, need information systems to share the information, and simulation tools to anticipate. So yes, it is relevant. Digital technologies are relevant for the transition to agroecology. Is it the case presently? No, and actually some would qualify digital agroecology as a kind of oxymoron, because actually the products we see on the market are top-down products. They come from they are driven by technology, not by ecology, and not even by agronomy in some cases. They are often part of technological packages together with high-tech equipments, together with industrial inputs. And the rationale of these tools is often optimization more than sustainable development. So that's what we see on the market of digital applications for agriculture. Does it mean there is no potential for using digital technologies to promote agroecology? No, because we can see some examples where it works, and these are examples where farmers keep the control on the data, on the equipment, on the management. You know, the hackathons, these meetings where people gather to design innovations. Well, in agriculture, now we see the organization of hackathons. There was one some weeks ago in the southwest of France. During 84 hours, farmers, developers, designers met together, and there was a kind of competition to design something new. And the outputs, the best outputs, were clearly focused on the transition to agroecology. One was about managing the complexity of a higher number of crops in the farm and more complex rotations. Another one was about the management of mechanical weeding. So when farmers are part of the process, then digital technologies really match their needs. Another point is that communication. Farmers involved in this transition, in this movement, they communicate a lot with the neighbors, but thanks to technologies with virtual neighbors that can be far away. But we can see that there are communities, and including to build innovations, I noted somewhere. Well, we have construction cooperatives in some places that well, traditionally were in the innovation in tools, in mechanical tools, but now they are in the innovation in digital tools. There is a farm hack community that is a community on the internet to exchange ideas and innovations. So the users should take the lead in the design process for the digital technologies to support the transition to agroecology. And second, they should facilitate communication and interaction among these sources of innovation. So this means that research and development should adapt to facilitate this involvement of digital technologies in the transition to agroecology. And living labs are clearly a good option for that, to get companies, users be together and be sure that at this regional level, at this territorial level, the definition is not easy to do, but at least in a place where a community has face the same issues and should innovate together. So all these people should be together. The last point I would like to stress is that this project should combine various steps in the value chain, because the limiting point is not just the farmer. There may be limiting points on another scale. For example, if a farmer decides to grow more crops, including in the same field, you can grow cereals and legumes together. Will the buyer, the company buying the product, be able to manage a higher number of crops, to store a higher number of crops, and to sell a higher number of crops? That's not clear. So if there is no way to sell a higher number of crops, of course there is a clear difficulty. So in the Living Lab, all the steps, well, all the relevant steps of the value chains should be associated to handle the problems, the limitations where they are, and again, not just at the farmer scale. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we can see, I think you illustrated very well how technology can help, and the fact that agroecology or ecological approaches, because they are more complex, requires a lot more skills and a better understanding of the system, how it works, and less simplified solutions, which is very, very challenging to manage. And so their technology can help. Thanks for these 4 perspectives. I'm now turning to the room. Now is your time to share your perspectives, your ideas, your comments. So I invited you to do that through Slido if you wanted. We're going to come there in a few minutes, but first I would like to give you the opportunity to intervene from the floor. We'll take a first wave of 3, 4 ideas that you would like to share, and then we'll see how it goes. The technician is handling this.
I'm Bram Moeskops, Scientific Coordinator at TP Organics, European Technology Platform for Organic Food and Farming. We've heard at the start of the presentation, start of the session, a very nice definition of what living labs are, but we haven't really heard what is the definition of agroecology, or or at least what principles should be based on agroecology. And I have the feeling agroecology is a bit hanging in the air. It's like the wonderful thing that's going to solve all the problems, but we don't really know, we didn't really define what it is. Is it just something greener, something more sustainable as we are farming now, or is it a profound change or a redesign? It's also sometimes a word that you hear, of farming practices. And yeah, probably you know what I'm going to say, but personally I believe that this should be closely connected with organic farming practices. Organic farmers have a tradition of decennia of using ecological processes, of applying natural methods, working with the ecosystem services, and there is a lot of knowledge available there. I'm not saying all farmers in Europe should become organic farmers, but I think if we want Europe to be agroecological, if we want to put in place this transition towards agroecology, there can a lot be learned from organic farmers.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, please. No, I think it doesn't need to be a question. We're just having this. The purpose of the discussion now. We've heard first 4 perspectives, and we will go back to them in the course of this discussion. But not what we want to have is a discussion on. If they wish to, yes. Otherwise, it can be people expressing their views, and there can be different views, and that's okay. I mean, people should be able to share without problem. So we have an intervention here, an intervention over there. Microphone, because otherwise the people listening to the web streaming cannot hear you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, what is the interface between agroecology and circular economy? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for this interesting presentation. This is Tom Zollner from the Farm Tech Society. I have a question. How do we bridge this silo between rural development, agriculture, and urban agriculture? It appears that recent articles, particularly after we had 2 seasons of very hot and dry summers in the northern hemisphere of North America and pretty much everything in Europe, that there is a relative connection between the heat island effect of metropolitan areas, creating high pressure systems which actually then turn the rural areas around the metropolitan areas into complete dry areas. And obviously the farmers are clearly the victims of this type of development, as well as, of course, the urban situation is suffering greatly when you have 40 degrees in Brussels. We all remember this summer that it was really terrible. However, what my interest is in a question: how do we actually bridge the gap between these 2 distinct, different ecologies and situations?
Thank you very much. A 4th comment that you would like to share? No? Okay, so I'll invite Wim to get ready to share with us what may have come on Slido, and while he gets prepared for this, I'd like to invite a first round of comments already on the questions that we've heard. I don't know if, Susanna, you want to come back in on the definition of agroecology, or the one we have chosen to use so far in our calls. And then off to the panel.
Yeah, of course, the definition I put is the one that we are aware of the fact that agroecology is a term that invites, let's say, to few definitions, different definitions, and the one that we have taken as the one that we want to, adhere to is really the learn how we can apply more knowledge about the ecology of an agricultural system to agricultural production, and to make agricultural production more sustainable. So this is a bit in general terms. Of course, then agroecology itself is extremely complex, because it's not only about agronomy per se, agricultural science, But as you know, it's also a very important implication from the point of view of the social aspects, collaboration among farmers, a territory, landscape perspectives, the psychology, as we were hearing before. It was a very interesting aspect that, of course, plays an important role in making farmers adhere or uptake these practices. And let's not forget the consumers, because if there is no market for products of agroecology, there will be no future, perhaps, for agroecology. So the definition, of course, can be one or another, but the objective at the end is really to move towards more sustainable agricultural practices and to also to more circular systems, because responding to one of the questions that was said before, agroecology per se, by definition, is really a circular system. Is really making use of the inputs coming from the farm directly to input again into the production system and not producing any waste. It's about all these things that we are mentioning here today. So about the definition we can discuss, and of course we know organic farming can show a lot in all this discussion, and there are a lot of lessons to be learned from there, but perhaps agroecology, it's a bit beyond in terms of the complexity, the way we see it. But of course we are here to discuss these things, and we welcome your opinion, of course. Thank you.
Would you like to comment this issue of how we see we can have different ways to view that word and concept?
Well, yeah, I can only agree that the concept of agroecology, just like the term sustainability, is a very broad one and has many chambers, and everybody will choose the chambers that they relate to, which is obvious. Now, I'm not sure if the goal should be to have a clear definition and then push that definition through and push those practices through. I think that we have, certainly in Europe, a very diverse model of agriculture. Tons of farms where some are organic, some are not, some are large scale, some are very small scale, some are animal-based production, some are vegetable. I mean, very diverse, which is great. Let's use that diversity and also tackling the huge diversity of challenges that we face, in the sense that a very intensive pork production can have a lower carbon footprint per kilogram of produced meat than a very extensive pork production, where a very extensive vegetable production might have bigger results in terms of creating different kinds of biodiversity on the farm than a very intensive vegetable production. So let's, instead of pushing everybody in a same cocoon of farming practices, let's use that diversity and make sure that everybody, in relation to the person that they are, in relation to the history of their farm, in relation to the vision on the future, in relation to the knowledge of the farmer, the financial capacities, whatever, to make sure that everybody can play the best role that they can in tackling the different challenges and to create an agricultural model which as a whole is what then we could define as more agro-ecological. But not to go to the nitty-gritty of saying, well, this is and this is not. Whatever is a positive impact should be considered as such, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Christian, you want to come in?
Maybe one word about agroecology in research. Sometimes we need words to tell that something has changed. And really, in agricultural research, at the turn of the century, at the beginning of the years 2000, really something happened between agronomy and ecology. And we named that agroecology. For example, in the 90s, there were still people working on the optimization of the use of fertilizer, on the optimization of pesticides. I don't think you would find now any research team working on these topics, but instead using ecological regulation to control, to regulate pests and diseases, or using ecological cycles to maintain the fertility of soils. So this is what changed. So it's a broad definition. Of course, organic farmers are in this movement, and they do use ecological regulation in some ways, not always. And for example, and they also have to think agroecologically. For example, should they go on using copper and pollute soils, or instead use ecological regulation to control some diseases? So I think this issue is valid for all kinds of agricultures.
Okay. I hear in a lot of what is being said also this local adaptation. You say everyone should find a way, we should use diversity and find a way in which everyone, according to who they are, how they farm and their local context, can find the solution to be more sustainable, more ecological. That echoes very well with the Living Lab approach. Luis, this is what we are trying to do in these Living Labs. Would you agree?
Completely. Completely. At the end, well, not only focus on the agriculture or agri-ecology, or you can name it in 1,000 ways, but at the end it is putting together people representing all the different sectors, and to join them and gather them and co-create a solution that it is going to match a need. And then you will probably have a profit or not, or a social need or not. But you are going to co-create something. And this thing you are going to co-create is going to tackle one challenge, local challenge. Otherwise, you are probably going to miss the shot. And yes, being this kind of connector, being the point where people trust you. I read in a slide what happens if the different elites or stakeholders they are in the opposite of the theory. I mean, they are in the opposite of the motivation. Okay, you have to tackle that. You have to find to touch the motivation of each of the stakeholders. Just to put together in a table and co-create the design. So it is, let's say, being the facilitators to promote the innovation. So that's the point.
Okay, thanks very much. You want to come in on maybe urban-rural relations?
No, my point was that how I see it, I think agroecology is the way to bring consumers the kind of products they want. Because at least we have noticed that consumers, they want sustainable, carbon-neutral products. So that's one way to do it.
Okay, thanks. Now, Yuri, maybe if you could approach Wim for a little summary of what we have on Slido. Of course, we can read it on screen, but maybe there's more that is hidden. And as we don't have a lot of time left, maybe you can give us a glimpse.
No, I think, thank you for all your comments. I think we suffered a little bit from the lunchtime timing, that in the beginning the comments came slowly, but then now they are coming. So keep them coming because they will be analyzed later on. We'll keep them. I think a lot have been said, but the ones that I pick out is one that is also on the screen. Will agroecology approach ensure the fundamental changes needed to meet the challenges we face in the food and wider system? That has been a question basically about the impact, what it can do, agroecology. That is a question that comes on top of a number of questions that have also been discussed on clarification of what exactly falls under agroecology. Another question that is popular is what is the need to provide farmers with risk management and investment tools to actually do all these changes in their practices? Could the panel say something about that? And then a third one maybe that I'll pick out is people are generally interested in their questions about living labs. But there are questions about what are the success stories of this kind of approach? How does it work? How do you bring the different people together? There's a lot of questions also on that.
Okay, and also how to engage consumers on agroecology and integration of plants, aquaculture, and things like that. So we have 6 minutes left. Who would like to start on these questions that Wim has gently summarized for us?
But I'll certainly take the first one and fully agree with the statement which is on the screen and which was translated into a question by Wim. Risk management and realization that any kind of change at a farm level is at the end an investment, is a step forward, needs to be answered with the tools to manage those, and with the long-term vision by a government locally, nationally or European of okay, is this the right step that I'm taking, and in that sense. That's also the reason why I focus so strongly on the farmer-owned living lab, or the farmer-translated living lab, because you assume that a colleague farmer will have made that same calculation, that same reflection of, okay, how does all of this, which is great in wording and great in result probably, but how does that also become great in result for me as an entrepreneur, as a family, and so on. And in that sense, the main question probably is how does that translate into a market benefit, and what is not translated into market benefit? How can we assure on the long term that society, through its political means, will support a transition into that?
Okay, thanks.
Maybe a point about the. I understand that the concern about the second question is about will agroecology be able to feed the people the same way agriculture can do it now? I mean, there is no choice. Actually, there is no choice. We have to feed the people. That's clear. But when you consider the ecological consequences of our global behavior, the reduction of the density of insects, of the density of birds. Well, we've seen this information this last month. That there is really a huge problem we have to handle, and so. But once again, the pressure should not be put on the farmers only. All the value chain until the consumer should change something to have something that would be sustainable. That means that would enable the production of food and other services, but also the maintenance of our environment. So yes, we have to find the way is certainly difficult, narrow, but there is no choice. I mean, we cannot. I mean, we cannot conclude that we have, in order to feed the people, we cannot go to agroecology. That's not an option.
Okay. Elina, would you like to comment on how to engage consumers in agroecology?
Well,
or in living labs, things like that?
Yeah, like I said, I think, and like Jan said, that if the agroecology brings this kind of advantages where consumers want to pay some extra, for example, that would be something that they actually want sustainable products.
Okay, but do you see them, for example, getting involved together with the farmers on experimentation on farms? Do you see them getting involved beyond their purchasing act?
Yes, I think, for example, this carbon counter, which I was telling about, more steps forward could be something that there's actually a connection to the farmer, and maybe the consumer wants to pay something to the farmer to do certain things that will hold the carbon in the soil, for example.
Okay. Luis, would you like to come in? I see that there are a question on living labs. Can you elaborate on participant recruitment? How do you define key relevant stakeholders and where you see the difference to citizen participation? It's very specific to agriculture. I don't know.
Yeah. Obviously, every stakeholder is a citizen, by the way. But, talking about theory, we always try to apply this 4-helix innovation model. When you join together to design or to co-design to create a solution, and you join together public administration, private companies, researchers, and citizens. It is let's say, the theory, the basis. The difference with only citizen participation is that we are not a test bed for applications. We are not somewhere you go and test your application and you receive a feedback. Okay, that could be one action, punctual action, or one collaboration or cooperation. But the consumer, I mean the citizen, is also a consumer and is involved in the first stage of the innovation and take care of how do you create the innovation, what is going to be the impact on all. That's why I also consider that the circular economy is in the basis, in the pillars of the Living Lab conception. I mean, you always, let's say you have a citizen that it is a consumer, but it is also a responsible consumer, because take part from the beginning of the innovation and in all the steps.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to have to draw the session to a close because we have exhausted our time. I think one question on urban and rural was left a bit in the air there, so I don't want you to be too frustrated.
It was too hard to answer as well.
It was very hard to answer, but just to tell you, we have activities under Horizon 2020 running on urban-rural linkages and partnerships and how we can design governance models that recognize, help establish rural and urban as partners together and collaborating on different things such as food or ecosystem services, culture, infrastructure, so that both on both sides of a continuum, because there's no clear frontier between the two, it really helps. And we discussed that also yesterday at the session on rural. So there are things, the project is called Robust, and you can find information online on this. It's rural-urban.eu. You can find information on this. Okay, so just a final word, if we can go back to the slide, please. Just to say the conversation remains open. So as Susanna has said, we have a consultation open until the 4th of October. I really welcome you to feed in your views, what you feel is the priority for the following steps. There you go. Here's the link. If you search through your favorite search engine, Horizon Europe consultation, you will bump on it. So please keep on telling us what you think, what you feel is important. And please give yourselves and the panel a big round of applause for this very interesting conversation we had today.